Good morning.
Morning, sunshine.
Yeah, sunshine.
Yeah.
Sunshine. Welcome, everybody. This is Youngstown's Talk Channel. Kelin and I finally reunited after all these days.
Reunited.
You were missed
so
a little.
Good. Was I?
Pico.
There was no talk of replacing me this time.
Oh, it wasn't me. It was the outside world is gunning for your job. They are gunning for it, and they think they deserve it more than you. And
well,
I can only cater to the needs of the people's voice. And so
it's like the wedding singer. Well, I have a microphone and you don't.
Mm-hmm.
So you will listen to every damn word I have to say.
Was it possession is 9/10 of the law?
Sure.
All right, what's up? You get first strike. Haven't talked to you in a while. So what's on your grill?
Oh, I have to go here. Yeah. Can we talk about Tylenol?
Sure.
Oh my God. Do you ever just want to scream like, everybody calm the hell down?
Okay.
So when this broke, the way that I even found out anything was happening with this was through social media, was the first one. And I saw all these people having just like going on this rampage of Tylenol, and Tylenol causes autism, and I can't believe Trump's saying Tylenol causes autism. And now you're seeing people like defiantly taking Tylenol on video just to like shove it in Trump's face. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? So I started seeing bits and pieces, RFK Jr., Dr. Oz, Trump, all in this press conference. And I was like, all right, let me see what's actually going on here. What truly happened? Not what a headline's telling me, not what an idiot on social media is saying. I watched the actual thing. So 2 different thoughts here. Number 1, do you ever feel like when you watch Trump at the podium address the country, does it ever feel to you as though he's reading this for the first time?
Absolutely.
Like the information he has in front of him, he is literally skimming while he's talking there on camera. And I'm like, do you not maybe look this over before you go out? I think he just starts talking. I think somebody says, we're going to go talk about this. Here you go. Thanks. And he walks up to the podium and he just starts talking. Mm-hmm. It would be nice if he did that less. Like sometimes I wonder if Kennedy ever looks at Trump and goes, could you not? Could you just let us talk, please? Maybe we don't need you to have input here. Because I do see where some information gets a little muffled, where people's feathers will be ruffled. Like, I get his delivery can be a bit frustrating. Having said that, if people could set aside their bias and actually listen, I think they'll feel a little less outraged. Because he does, in fact, say in this press conference a lot of things like, I think, my thoughts are. He literally states, I'm sure Senator Kennedy would say it differently than me. He chooses his words carefully. I don't. So here's what I think. So you sort of have to take whatever he says with a grain of salt. He's literally telling you these are my thoughts. This is not anything set in stone. I get that's frustrating. He's the president of the United States. Maybe prepare better. No argument there. But if you're going to get so outraged, so offended, so affected by what information is being presented to you, at the very least, know what it actually is. Because when Kennedy spoke, there was a lot of, this is what we're looking at. This is what we're looking into. Here are some studies suggesting this. Here are some studies suggesting otherwise. This is something we're kind of staying with and seeing what we see. Which to me is totally fair. That's totally fair. Why? Because from day one, when Kennedy took this position, he said, I will be as transparent as possible. We need transparency. The American people need to know what we're doing, what we're looking at, what we're involved in. Let me go ahead and update you with where we are right now. But what do? We take everything we hear and we just run with it in whatever direction we've already decided we are going. And everything is an absolute and everything is a certainty. And if you even mention the word Tylenol and autism in the same sentence, you're telling me your evidence shows that Tylenol causes autism, period. It's not what he's saying. You're telling me vaccines cause autism, period. Not what he's saying. You're telling me it's a genetic thing. You're telling me it's an outside factor. You're telling me when all they're doing is having a discussion and keeping you updated on information they're looking at. And we're all too ridiculous to just hear it and say, all right, well, thanks for the update. Keep looking. Noted. What else you got? Let's keep going on this. And what's even more infuriating is the freaking emotional games we play. Because how many times did you see on Facebook, listen, mothers, you didn't cause your child's autism. Don't feel bad. You didn't cause this. And I'm like, who said they caused it? Nobody is shaming mothers here. Nobody is saying, oh, look what you did. No. All this is some information we're presenting. We're not saying anyone's to blame, but because you hate this administration so much, you immediately make it emotional. You immediately assume that someone was being attacked here. You've got to create a victim so that then they feel some kind of way against this. And it's like, holy crap, you're all losing your minds over something where all they were doing is saying, here's some info we're looking at. Period. And it drives me insane.
You're quite fired up over this.
I am.
So, okay, you go back in time, maybe a couple of years, and I would have believed in the alternate reality. Okay, so let's just say we change it up and we say, Trump, you're not the best presenter for this information. Your opinion's not going to carry any weight. We're just going to let some scientists go out there. We're going to have RFK Jr. talk about it. It'll be presented well, right? Mm-hmm. Nothing would be different or change. It's not like if we would have sent out the articulate spokesperson for this, that those outrage people would have somehow been more accepting of it. Yeah. So it doesn't matter if we want to send out somebody who's just going to punch people in the face. Now, you might feel better about it if it's represented well, because you could state your argument better, but it's not going to change anything other than you're going to feel a little bit better that you feel like if you had a reasonable crowd that were listening to this, they'd be like, oh, okay, I'll willing to go. I'm reasonable enough to go along with this.
Yeah. And that's why I'm sort of preaching to the choir here, because anybody with some sanity to them, anybody that can listen and think for themselves, probably feel the same way. They're probably like, oh, wow, interesting. Let's look at that.
But you're referring to a reality that has not existed in 4 years.
I know.
So let me throw something at you. Okay. So behind the scenes, and this is just a complete conspiracy theory. This doesn't exist. This is just a fun thought experiment. So let's just say if we send RFK Jr. out there, the people who have already written on their note cards that they're going to be outraged and push back and just go nuts on it anyway. Why don't I go out there first? And I'm going to be the decoy. So they're going to be outraged at me. I'm going to sound as silly as I want to sound, so that instead of taking guns at those people, I'm going to create a sort of like a gradient between the two. They'll take all their anger and outrage on me and what I said and what my opinions are, and they'll kind of take some heat off of whoever's going to follow me in that speech. I don't know that that's the case, but if you look at the math behind it, that's sort of what happened in the end, right? Yeah. Nobody was really gunning. But like I said, you shift it. I think about like if you pick the different path on, these simulations, what happens if he doesn't do it and what happens if he does do it? I think there was an actual net gain by having Trump go out there, aside from Kelin feels a little bit worse about it because you're looking to have some backing. You're holding the line and you're acting on your principles. All you need is the people that are doing it publicly to have your back and not make you look foolish. That's the only downside to this. Upside, right? Same messaging, same outrage, same reasonable people are like, okay, well, I'll mute the Trump part of it because I know I'm not going to get any real information out of that anyway. I'll turn the volume up when we get to the scientists and the people who know how to demonstrate and present this, and then it all is the same information at the end of the day.
It's just so frustrating. It's just like when we talk about Trump derangement syndrome, this is an example of it.
Yeah.
But it's not even just the people that are saying stuff about Trump and what he said or how he presented it. It's then when they claim RFK said, did, whatever. And I'm just like, did you even listen? Did you even listen?
You think, okay, I know you want to argue at them.
I know it's futile.
Okay, so listen, but it's not just them. About 6 or 7 years ago, right? I was on the radio and I was talking about health stuff, the things that I was working on and whatever. And I said, what I'd really like is everybody that's listening to me right now not to need any kind of medications, be healthy enough that you're only, have a relationship with it in emergency settings. It's not part of your daily routine to pop pills and do injections and take medications and whatnot. I want that for you. And you would have thought that I pierced the veil of some religion. The calls and the text messages were so nasty that I would suggest that I was an obstacle to someone getting the pills that they want. What about this person? And they can't help this person. And there was no reasonable thought process in it. They were so connected to the sacred medication, right? If anybody even suggested that there was a pathway to them not getting their medicine, they were just aghast with outrage. And so it was pre-Trump. This was way before all of this kind of stuff. And that the pharmaceuticals industry's control over our psychology is if we do a bad behavior, that the magic elixir is just on the cart that was wheeled in town square, right?
Yeah. And because it's not like this is even new. Like this outrage is because you tied this medication with the word autism. Like you hit that hot button, that
why is it a hot button?
Word.
Let's talk. I mean, I know it's not a hot button for you. So if the data and we only have what's in front of us to go by. If the data says that there's an explosion of autism, do you believe that there's an explosion of autism amongst the population? Do you think it's gone from here? There's some people that argue that we just changed the methodology for testing. So it's about the same as it always was. We're just better at testing for it, right? Do you buy that?
Not really. I think maybe a little bit of both. I'm sure testing has changed over the years. But I think it is just more prevalent.
Okay. I agree with that because just on your personal experiences, how many autistic children did you know growing up? I knew one. He lived around the road and he was super high functioning, killer person to be around because of how freaking smart that he was. Right?
Yeah.
Now ask your kid, how many autistic people do they know? Now, is this something that, I was like, nobody told me that this kid down the road was autistic. I ran into him on a regular basis and identified him personally as my observation as autistic. Yeah. It's not like there were other people in my school that just flew below the radar and were really autistic, but I just never noticed. Now just take your kid and ask them, how many true autistics do they know that's in their clubs, at their events, in their school system? And they will probably say, and again, this was like 17 years of my life, I ran into one truly autistic person. Ask your kid how many truly autistic people they have run into, and it is going to be a number higher than what we experienced as kids. So I don't believe that it's just a diagnosis phenomenon. I believe that there are more autistic people in our neighborhoods and in our communities now.
And how do you feel too when they're talking about a couple of times now it's come up that there are groups of people that have a very low rate, like the Amish. So now they're looking into what's different. But what is so ridiculous is you're shamed for questioning. You're shamed for asking. You're shamed for bringing it up. And it's one of those things, well, when I say it's like this buzzwords right now are things: autism, abortion, trans, any of these things that the right and left have been fighting about for the last year or two, you even mention it, like, people are like, whoa, are we allowed to talk about this? Freedom of speech, gun control. You better be careful. You better be careful what you say. And I'm like, shut up. You're making this what it doesn't need to be. You're making this taboo when we are, in fact, allowed to discuss things. Otherwise, nothing happens, nothing changes. And every time somebody says, oh my gosh, why haven't you done anything about this? Well, I tried to. And when I told you what I was doing, you didn't like it. You didn't like what I was saying. And so back we go, just not saying anything anymore and getting nowhere.
Yeah. I look at this a certain way. So let's just say that you have people that push on the status quo and be able to question whether or not we have something right. Okay. Mm-hmm. So long that you have the freedoms personally, like if you have you and your kid and your family and the people you do have influence, you could just do it yourself, right? Mm-hmm. You don't have to like tell other people. If they want to be bought into the zealotry of pharmaceuticals, go off and do that. Like it doesn't affect me whatsoever. So, but when I look, and COVID was a really big challenge because you had that same kind of opposition. People were judging you based on your decision. Me, I'm digging through details and data, and I'm looking at the research, and I'm trying to make reasonable arguments for whether or not I and my family are going to do something or not do. I don't need your input unless you're a really good guesser and I trust your authority on the matter. Like you're just an opinion as far as I'm concerned, and I can mute you out really easy. I don't need you to agree with me in order for me to make a decision. In fact, I'm probably going to, the louder that you try to make me do something, the more I'm gonna like, why are you trying to make me do it? And I'm going to probably mute you faster if you try to control me or emotionally leverage me in some way.
Yeah. And it is interesting, the point of why. Why are you trying to make me do this? Why? What is in this for you?
So let's do that.
Yeah.
So what is it about a regular person, right, that gets so upset that you say, okay, so acetaminophen, and there may be a connection between autism. Two reasonable people, we look at the autism part of that statement and say, oh, well, if we can save someone from a neurodegenerative,
I don't know, I get what you're saying.
Neurodegenerative disease or a condition, right? Do we want that or do we want to avoid that? Okay, so first part is, yeah, we probably want to save some families from that. If we kind of had guesses as to something is causing that versus it's just a genetic thing and it's the lottery of whatever, and we can't have any controls of it. Now, if you agree that something can be done, then the second question is, okay, there's 1,000 variables that it could be. Do we know which ones they are? Yes, no. All right, we don't know what they are right now. Okay, let's dig into it. Take some guesses, right? Mm-hmm. Obviously, we don't know right now. So what we know is not sacred at this point. If we knew, we'd be fixing it. Since we don't know, we can't make absolute statements like, well, I don't know what it is, but it's not that, right? That's an unfair blockade of science rather than, saying, okay, well, your first couple guesses might be close to the mark, but not right on, but keep digging, keep going down that pathway, because if the overall mission is that we want to figure it out and find out what's causing it so that we can cause it to happen less. So let's just say acetaminophen is part of the deal. Let's just say 50% of the population, the FDA guidelines make suggestions, put messages on bottlings that don't take acetaminophen during stages of pregnancy or only one. How many years do we have to go then to figure out if that decision was right or wrong? Right? We're 10 years, 15 years from finding out if that is. Can we stave off the criticism of whether or not that's a good or bad decision for 15 years till we could figure out if that's the one? No.
We can't stave it off for 15 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. So it has to get buy-in. It has to get like, okay, well, smart people are on this, right? People who sole mission is to figure out, of the 1,000 variables, how many of them work in conjunction with each other to cause the condition that we're suffering, and whittled, and really in the tech industry, typical troubleshooting. You know what we do first in troubleshooting? We eliminate all non-essential variables. If there's too many variables in the equation, we don't know which one's causing the problem. So we take all the ones that aren't necessary and rip them out of the equation. So the only things that are left in the equation are the things that have to be there. And if you do the exponential conditions, when you take 100 different things that could be in different combinations, when there's too many of them, couple that with how many years it takes for it to show itself, you're never solving that problem with so many variables in there. So if I'm like, yes, no, is acetaminophen necessary, right, for a pregnancy? Yes or no?
Necessary?
Is it necessary for a pregnancy? Like,
no.
Is it a supplement that you need to take as part of the gestation process? The answer is no.
No.
So that smart people need to say, okay, well, if we don't know if this one's the suspect yet, we want that suspect out of the equation, put something in there that we know is either better or neutral or, isn't. And let's find out why people are suffering pain and solve the problem differently. If somebody has a super high fever, right, and they're pregnant, does the fever pose a risk higher than taking the acetaminophen? So would you rather have a dead baby or an autistic baby? Well, if a doctor is going to weigh those consequences, they're going to say, yes, take the acetaminophen, because that is the nuclear option to save the life of the mother or the kid, versus the pain or the suffering that you're going to get, or the inconvenience or whatever comes along with having a kid with that condition.
Yeah, and what's so annoying too is it's not like this is a brand new concept. When I was pregnant, I remember being told, you can take Tylenol, but don't take anything stronger. There was one time I had a migraine while pregnant, and it was horrendous. And the pain was horrendous, and I couldn't stop throwing up, and I reached for an Excedrin migraine. And my doctor, when I told her I did that, said, don't ever do that again. Don't ever take that again. Now, is it a little different from Tylenol? Sure. But it was, don't take these. These are meds we're unsure of. They could be dangerous. Don't take them. Then there was Zofran, anti-nausea med, was prescribed to me in my first pregnancy for nausea. My second pregnancy, which was only a year later, don't take it. Turns out it's really bad for the development of a fetus. Dangerous, don't take it. Oh, thanks, because you realized just like 10 months ago you had me taking it, but something changed. This isn't a new idea that medications, while once thought safe, may not be. And I'm not saying Tylenol is not safe. I'm just saying consider. Use your best judgment, see what the studies say. And what's even more ridiculous is the people who are outraged are these same people that were totally fine when you were told to inject something into your arm. Where's the science? Where's the study? I want to see it. They said it's safe. Okay, I'll do it. Now, were you fine? Maybe. Were some people not fine? Right? So use your best judgment. Use your discretion. But I think you should do this. No. It was you're a bad person if you don't inject something into your body. And now you're a bad person if you simply say, maybe we should put a warning on the bottle. It's madness. And it's the biggest example of Trump derangement syndrome we have right now. And anybody that says that's not true, you're lying. You're lying. Like Julie, I love Julie. Don't take Tylenol. Don't take Tylenol. Where are the studies that those statements were based on? What is the basis for this declaration? Tell me so I can decide for myself. Right. But did you hear Trump say, don't take Tylenol? And instead of saying, oh, why not? Well, what are you saying? Well, what could we be looking at here? Well, can I see the research? All of those questions, Kennedy and Oz are more than willing to answer for you. People just went, oh, don't take Tylenol. What an idiot. I can't believe he thinks Tylenol causes autism. It doesn't cause autism. I'm going to take a bunch of Tylenol. And I'm like, look what you're doing. Don't tell me you're not brainwashed. You 100% are.
Okay, so this is, we're processing this deal in linear thinking. And I think that's why a majority of people have this 1-to-1 ratio between what's happening and an end result. And like most things, when you have multiple variables, okay, so let's use having sex as as sort of like an analogy here. Okay, when you have sex, do you get pregnant?
every time?
Yeah.
No.
Why? How linear thinking says when you have sex, you get pregnant, right? We know it is part of the equation. Now, are there things you can do to make it less likely that you get pregnant?
Yes.
Are there things that you can do to make it more likely to get pregnant?
Yes.
Okay, so certain conditions have to be met, and the timing has to be right for certain things to happen, and the end result, you have a high probability. And even when there's a high probability, sometimes you don't get pregnant.
Yeah.
So think of it in the same ways. So if a condition is happening and it requires a bunch of tumblers to be in the certain segments or certain positions in order for autism to occur, and we know that there are multiple, maybe hundreds of conditions that are contributing to the likelihood and probability of autism happening. We know baked into those ingredients, one of them or several of them are causing it. So let's just say that a woman has the folic acid is probably, part of the condition. So let's just, I'm going to pick 4 random things. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Number 1, that you have exposure to aluminums and the formaldehydes and whatever. And these are random. These aren't part of what actually is. But let's just say you get vaccinated. You got vaccinated for this reason, but now you have these elements that are in your body. Okay. Now you're having a rough week and you're taking supplements, but you're not getting a lot of absorption, low folic acid, right? So now you have 2 conditions having been met. And then you take acetaminophen. And now you have 3 of the tumblers. Now, you might do the heavy metals and the things that are in the vaccines. You might do the low folic acid. You might then do acetaminophen. And then the lottery hits, the lever gets pulled, and the autism bell goes off. You might do those same things with a couple of extra variables mixed in there, and the autism lights don't go off. And it's because we have so many things that are in our body and exposure to environments and genetic conditions and all of these other variables, we can't figure out the right tumblers that equal the autism. So the best thing to do, if you're a reasonable person, say, hey, there's too many variables in. So the best thing that you're going to do for you and your family is eliminate all the things that are non-essential. Try to avoid, picture a village where people are having babies and what our natural body was adapted and designed over time. And do all of the things that would have been there, right? And only do the things that are, outside of that in an emergency situation. So if you take that acetaminophen and you do it one time, all the other conditions were as pure as you could possibly get, the likelihood that one little added element is really low probability. But if you're doing it on a regular basis and all those other conditions are there, and we know all of the things that contribute to those, you're just playing the law of averages. If it's happening in high numbers, you have to eliminate the variables that are contributing it. So taking acetaminophen, let's just say, boom, kick acetaminophen out of that, right? Mm-hmm. And you do all the other things. You do all the vaccinations, and you do the low folic acid, and then the alarm bells hit. So obviously, acetaminophen was just a contributing factor that added a little bit to the likelihood, but it wasn't the only one that are baked into those ingredients lists.
Yeah. I mean, how many times were we told as kids, don't go out and play in the cold, in the wet rain. You're going to catch a cold. You're going to get sick. Well, why? Does rain make you sick? Does cold temperatures make you sick? Well, what it could do is potentially put your body in this state of maybe your immune system might be compromised or lowered or whatever. You're just making a perfect storm of maybe catching a cold more easily. But everyone's like, duh. You just said cold temperatures make you sick. That's not true. That's not. And it's like, it's not even what we're saying.
By the way, I do feel bad for Tylenol because they are a brand.
They are getting Yes.
Listen, there are
the same
hundreds of manufacturers of acetaminophen.
I thought the same thing.
They got cited. Somebody brought up the other day that the likelihood that Tylenol, the brand, would bring lawsuit against the FDA or whoever's naming them directly.
I was wondering.
I believe
Trump directly.
Yeah. And so you have about 50-50 polymarket here. Now, your Tylenol, you've been directly cited. Your brand has now been blemished by what they're saying. Do you sue?
Well, if I were in the position of the people in office right now, here's how I may have done it. I don't even know if you could have started with just saying acetaminophen. Just acetaminophen. Be careful with acetaminophen. We're looking into acetaminophen. Some people said, when they immediately started saying Tylenol, I went, oh, poor Tylenol, because acetaminophen is in a lot of other brands. I think the reason they specifically said Tylenol is it is very commonly, widely understood that when you were pregnant, you were told only take Tylenol. That is, I've heard that so many times when I was pregnant. I know other pregnant women that have been told that. You can't take Aleve, you can't take Excedrin, you can't take whatever. Tylenol specifically is the only safe thing. Mm-hmm. So I see why they would say that brand is because that is literally what we are told to take, that specific name brand. But if I were Tylenol right now, I'd be feeling some kind of way.
Okay. So now what has bigger weight in the marketplace? If something is truly unsafe, should the people protect the brand and not tell you that they came across a safety issue and would you want them to mention it? Or like, we're just going to get sued, so there's no way that we're going to come out and tell you that this could cause X, Y, Z. So we're going to silence ourselves because we're afraid of getting sued.
I'd want to mention it. For example, when I was pregnant with my second child and they said, hey, I realized that a year ago we said Zofran was safe. Don't take it. New studies have come out that it could be quite dangerous. Well, Zofran can be called Noxa whatever on the bottle. There's a really long name I can't pronounce, but I know that. Oh, that's Zofran. I want you to tell me Zofran because that's what I know it as. And so again, if it's known by a particular name, meaning brand, that's kind of important to say, I think.
So Julie says Tylenol was targeted because Trump couldn't pronounce acetaminophen. Did you watch him try to?
I did see that. Acetaminophen.
So when you watch someone giving a speech, right? And they've got a memorized speech and they're on stage and everybody's looking at them and they forget their speech and they just sit there doe in the headlights like you're cringing, you're feeling for them.
God, yeah.
That they're struggling when people are judging them for what they're doing.
Yeah.
I felt the same way when he was trying to pronounce on the teleprompter,
I felt that way watching Biden and Trump debate.
Yes.
Which is another reason that I can't stand the hypocrisy in our society right now on both sides. But I saw someone say, you're going to trust the person that can't pronounce acetaminophen? Yeah. Over the guy that couldn't spit out a full sentence when he spoke? Over the guy that stumbled over words and slurred and went on a tangent like he forgot what he was talking about or where he was?
I think what it did it for me. Like I stumbled on regenerative disease, right?
Yeah.
Right. Saying the word regenerative. Now, let's just say I just spent the last 2 months preparing and diving into a topic. And in my brain, I've said regenerative disease over and over. You would think when I went to pronounce it, it wouldn't feel like I've never seen the word regenerative disease, right?
Yeah.
Same thing I felt like with acetaminophen. So you're gunning for, right? And you're taking aim at something that you haven't like really figured out how to pronounce. And that was what was most, it felt like you said, showed up that day. Oh shit, I forgot my book report. I'm going to copy off of you and I'm going to try to come across as competent. And that did not feel competent to me.
I mean, he literally was like combing through the papers and, because things like, this, it's very bad, can be very bad, can be like, he says a lot of these word salad, almost like they're verbal pauses to him. Like, just keep talking, just words coming out while I'm trying to get my bearings here and find a paragraph to read and blah, blah, blah. And that was my first thought is you should have read this before you came out to speak. It looks like you didn't. It looks like, oh, this was just handed to me and I'm reporting on it. Let's see. What else does it say here? Blah, blah, blah. But the man even literally said, this is my feelings on it. This is what I'm deducing. I'm thinking. I know Kennedy here probably would tell you differently. I don't know. I know he chooses his words very carefully. I don't care. Well, like he was very much like, I don't give an F.
Julie and I are going to call you out because we both agreed that we were annoyed when Trump would call back to Biden, and then you just called back to Biden. And let's get.
Listen,
I want you to repromise that Biden is gone. He's not a president anymore. So calling those back is not necessary. You can.
Here's why it is necessary.
Why?
When Trump calls it back, it's like Trump wants to keep taking the focus off of him and bash this guy. And it's like, we get it. You don't like him. Talk about what you have more information to give us. When I call back Biden, it's not to bash Biden. I'm not doing it to blame him or say that he was incompetent. I'm saying the general public that has the double standard is who I'm calling out. I'm calling out anyone that wants to say this, what's the word? I just lost it. Administration is one way, and that's not cool. When you just watch the past administration do the same thing, and that was cool. I'm calling out that hypocrisy.
Okay, now that we've done it, now let's make a new renewed promise that we will no longer do a call back to Biden.
I can't promise that because there's just so much hypocrisy to point out.
But once you've already called out the hypocrisy, calling out another
and again,
one.
Deaf ears, because only sane people don't need that explained to them.
Are liberals hypocrites in today's culture?
Some.
Okay. So calling them a hypocrite again in the future is only putting another highlighter on something that we've all accepted because you have to be. You have to be.
Both sides can be hypocritical, but
in this case, they are fluently hypocritical in just about every political argument that you could have. There is no consistency. So shelve it. We already know that. It's not another argument to be waged. It's already accepted. Deal? And that'll help you from having like a callback to Biden, like Julie says. Whataboutisms suck. Let's talk about Trump.
Whataboutism.
Talk about Trump and either bad Trump, good Trump. And if non-being hypocritical would be able to call him out like you always do. I'm not accusing you of being a hypocrite, but it's unnecessary to make that comparison with Biden because nobody that's reasonable is making that argument.
That's what I'm saying too. When I say we're preaching to the choir is because any reasonable, sane, thinking person already knows this.
Yes.
And the people that are not those things don't even hear it, can't comprehend it, refuse to. Mm-hmm. So a lot of this is preaching to the choir, but it's still fun. Yeah. Somebody said, may I bring up Dr. Richard Sackler? Who's that?
I don't know.
Who is that, Scott? Dr. Richard Sackler? Let's bring him up. American businessman and physician. Chairman and president of Purdue Pharma.
Oh, OxyContin.
He developed OxyContin?
Yeah.
Well, we brought him up. What about him? Go ahead, Scott. Give us a little more details on that. Julie says, no, it was never cool. Biden could not run because he was losing it. Says a normal thinking person.
Yes.
When I say that's not cool, I mean the people that aren't rational thinkers.
Yeah. Running cover fire like the media did was the only call out that I will do is they were complicit in that whole thing. And that's the disappointment is how many people were
complicit in all of this. Yes. For example, when I saw the news organizations talk about this Tylenol story, they immediately led with a clip of Trump saying, don't take Tylenol. Tylenol is bad. Just tough through it. And that's it. That's it. Then you go to the actual press conference, you watch the whole thing, and you're like, what about this? What about that? What about that? What about when they said that? No, we're not going to show anything that makes sense. We're only going to show what might outrage someone. And we just eat it up. We eat that up.
All right. So let me tell you, and I call this the smell test for Tylenol. So let's just say the Tylenol brand decides they're going to sue because their brand is going to lose money because of what was said during that deal. Okay. Mm-hmm. So Tylenol goes to court, they file it, and now it has to be, you have to present a case of how you're being injured. Now, you are going to be liable for the damage caused by the government saying Tylenol is unsafe for pregnancy, because it causes people to then lose faith in a brand that you spent gobs of money to say the otherwise, say the opposite. Now, so you have to then present your argument about how somebody said something that was untrue. So if I said something that was true about you and it did harm to you, if it was true, then I'm not liable because I just said a true thing.
Right.
If I told a lie, something I knew that wasn't true and I did damage to you, now I am liable because I knowingly said something that was untrue. So then, now what does Tylenol have to do? They then have to prove how the research and the presentation was untruthful. Now, if you have research in the scientific community and you have some research that says one thing and some research that says another thing, how do you even make a case? You would almost have to discredit the research that says the thing that you're arguing against.
Yeah.
Now, this could, if we had a legitimate marketplace and legal system and scientific community, everybody's going to have an interest in, okay, we got to find out what's true. So now, if you had research that the pharmaceutical industry curtailed and silenced because it did have things that were not complementary to your brand, and you silenced them, well, guess what? The people who you're coming to court against are absolutely going to then hang that out in the public, right? Because that is their defense against this lawsuit. Now, if there is nothing, and all of this stuff over here is fabricated, where there are no ties and there are no research and there's no tests and experiments that go along with it, now you're going to be held to account. So that's why I said this sets up the perfect smell test to see who's really right and wrong. And I have a feeling, just my personal opinion, that there's going to be some research that's going to come out that's not going to be complimentary. Did you see the 2017 X posting by Tylenol?
No.
All right, so you read it. I'll just bring it up real quick.
2017,
and it was posted in 100 different places. So if this is not legit, then this is from 2017. What did Tylenol say on it?
We actually don't recommend using any of our products while pregnant. Thank you for taking the time to voice your concerns today. Really?
So if that is legitimate, right?
Tylenol.
If that is
trademark.
legitimate, right?
Yeah.
And there's context that says somebody was, there was birth defects or whatever the story preceding that response. They're saying, I'm going to cover my ass. I'm going to say, while you're pregnant, we don't recommend taking this. Us as a brand do not recommend taking this. Talk to your doctor and they can figure out whether or not taking the risk of acetaminophen is applicable in your case. That's what I hear when they were saying.
Yeah.
But then you can't in 2025, right, say the exact opposite. Where did you read their press release yesterday?
No.
So I'll read.
Thickens.
After having read that was shortened to the point.
Shortened to the point. Tylenol themselves said, we do not recommend any of our products to pregnant women.
And that is good advice. That is really good advice, because you don't, as a brand, you don't want to be making a recommendation. You want doctors to be making recommendation.
Yeah. Which, by the way, even Dr. Oz in this press conference said when they were talking about this medication they think might be a good treatment for, said, talk to your doctor because your doctor knows your child and their specific case. But no, nobody wants to acknowledge they said that.
Yeah, I can't find the press release here, but I'll give you a summary. They basically said that doctors have been recommending this as a safe, administered safe for the doctor for things like fevers, and we trust the science and whatnot. So it was completely opposite of the 2017. We do not recommend any of our products while you're pregnant. So you can see that, and I don't fault them for that. Honestly, the way that science works is you work on the best knowledge that you have at the time. And as knowledge changes, you're allowed to give different recommendations once you know more stuff about this product. So let's just say in 2021, new research says that it does do damage to your liver. Let's just say it does increase your risk for whatever. Then you're allowed to change your mind later and say, time out. We're not, but this is anyway.
Yeah, it's always, weigh the risks. When you're pregnant, I feel like, at least in my experience, it is sort of, don't take a medication unless you absolutely need it. If you are so sick that you are not keeping anything down, you are dropping weight, you are lacking nutrients, that could be a more dangerous situation than if we gave you an anti-nausea med, potentially. Weigh the risks, make the decision. That's what this is. Weigh the risks, make your own decision. It's the public that made this so ridiculous. And in my opinion, only because you hate this president so much.
In the last 10 years, how many Tylenol do you think I have taken in 10 years?
2.
0.
Oh, I almost said 1. I almost said 0.
So it's only because that...
No fever, nothing?
No. I've taken 2 Advil in the last 5 years. And it is...
Speaking of which...
Yeah.
Go ahead, make your point. I'll try to remember it. Whoop.
And it's only because I heard the liver damage that is possible for when you take acetaminophen or even ibuprofen. So I was like,
NSAIDs,
so
all of them.
So if I have a headache, I'm like, I have 2 choices. Do something that I know increases the risk of doing damage to my body, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the nuclear option. I will only do that thing if it's a freaking emergency. The second part of that is I'm going to try to make it so that I don't have any emergencies. I'm going to figure out what causes headaches or pain or whatever, and I'll try to solve it with means instead of using the thing that I know that could be toxic to my body.
Yeah.
And so that was just a personal decision, and I haven't had to take one of those. Now, if you just poll regular people who really don't have a compass leading them whether or not they should do something or whatever, what do you think the normal individual does as far as pain medication, Advil and acetaminophen?
Oh, pop it at the earliest sign of an inconvenience.
10 a month, right? Many more than what I've done, and 2 within the last 5 years, 2 within the last 10 years, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And so if there are so many people that are on command using medications to be able to mask their unhealth, and we have that whole, demographic that is just addicted to it, or not even addicted to it, but just dependent on it, I can see where there was a real danger where if my knees hurt every day and I had to take the medication, I wouldn't for a second think of what other things that I'm doing that are causing this knee pain. I'll just take these 2 pills. The pain goes away. It's all good.
Yeah. And in fact, I'm even hearing more and more doctors say, if you or your child has a fever, leave it alone. Unless it gets to a certain level, take nothing, because that's your body's defense mechanism.
Exactly.
The fever is fighting the illness. It's not necessarily a bad thing. You need that. Now, if it gets out of hand, if it's climbing, there could be some dangers there. By all means, let's intervene. But I'm sure the typical average person, I was the same way myself. The moment my kid had 100 degrees on that thermometer, 101, any of it, I'm instantly scared. What do we need? Do we need Motrin or Tylenol? Then you have to alternate them. It can't be back to back. All this other stuff where every parent is like, oh my God, what do I do? What do I do? And so they want answers. We want to know, what do we do? What's safe? What's not safe? What's normal? What's not normal? And then here's somebody saying, hey, maybe this isn't safe. And it's like, if it's not what we want to hear, we instantly say, no, you're wrong. Maybe we're not wrong. You just didn't want to hear it, is what it is.
And I was the dick in my family. So when my kid had 101 degree fever and my wife started doing what you were doing, flipping out, I would say, no, a fever is a natural function of your body. Yep. And there is, I'm going to, you can Google right now when an elevated temperature becomes dangerous and what could happen. Long sustained periods of time at high temperatures, your body is not, meant to handle long sustained. So there is a problem bigger than your immune system's response to something. It should spike. It should do its thing, killing off whatever it was killing off. It should then return to normalcy. Right.
Yeah.
And again, I had to fight against the emotional responses that when you're taking care of a kid, you don't want them to be in pain. You don't want them to be shivering on the couch. You don't want them to be uncomfortable. And if I just pop this pill, that temperature comes down. And it's only if I said, you just deprived your kid's immune system from doing a natural function of what it was supposed to be doing. You hampered it. You got in its way. What if you damage their immune system by never allowing it to do the natural version of it? And now you might have saved some inconvenience of being shivering at the consequence of now doing real damage to their body by doing what you did.
Yeah. Have you ever experienced the, people call it my fever broke when you were sleeping? Like, when you're sick and you have a fever, but maybe it's nighttime and you go to bed and you're not actually taking anything, you're asleep. So you don't realize you're not feeling as cruddy because you're asleep, but that fever is running its course. You ever wake up dripping in sweat, but feeling so much better?
Mm-hmm.
Like you fought it.
Yep.
And the only difference is you allowed yourself to do that. You were asleep. I wasn't conscious to go take medicine. I was asleep. So the body did its thing, and you know it did its thing because you're drenched in sweat. But you wake up like, oh, fever broke. Like there was just a whole battle going on, and we're on the upswing now. And
that is the mission statement of the Maha movement. Isn't necessarily to conquer all of these problems by, regulating pharmaceuticals. It's when you're healthy, you don't need this stuff. So let it be on the market and let nobody really need it or be dependent on it and buy it. And that way you don't have to ban things. Like I don't ever foresee acetaminophen not being available if you want to go and buy it. I do see a bottle that says, hey, we're suspicious this might be not great for you if you're pregnant. Try not to do that if you can help it.
Yeah, but you don't have pharmaceutical companies sending their drug reps to doctors and saying, you know what, I hope you never need this.
Exactly.
But just in case, here's a couple. No, it's, hey, you could use it for this. You could use it for this. Do you have this? Sure, try it. Why not? We'll see how it goes. Like, and by the way, I'm going to go ahead and give you some incentives. If you buy this from me, you're going to get this and you're going to get that.
And that's not the responsibility. You have to know that the person trying to sell you the car doesn't have an interest in not selling you the car. Really aggressive salespeople will not only try to sell you the car, they'll try to also create the foundation where you're not really choosing it. You're being forced into it.
Yeah.
So do the pharmaceutical industries want you to be dependent? They've got a motive to keep you in a sick state, so you buy their product and lots of it. Their job is to sell more of it, not less. So if I have data, right, if I do my own research, now, first of all, pharmaceuticals should be nowhere near the research that regulates their industry because they have motivation to make the research that doesn't make more of their products sell never see the light of day.
A little bit of a conflict of interest there.
But we're like, the government's like thought it was a great idea. Since you're making all this money from the sale of the drug, you fund that research. And they thought that was a really good idea, right?
Yeah.
So bank robbers are in charge of whether or not they get prosecuted, right? Then they're not going to have a penalty in their department. They're going to find all of the reasons why they should go scot-free. And so the Maha movement decoupling the pharmaceuticals control on research, on distribution, how it goes into doctors' offices, and they get, sort of leveraged into selling more products. They become pill pushers instead of, medical doctors. So
can you imagine what doctors' offices and hospitals would be like if nobody used them unless it got so bad they're like, hey, can't fight this on my own. Like, I've tried everything. I need you to control this fever, this whatever. But that was it. Like, you don't go to the hospital, you don't go to the doctor if you can fight something naturally. Can you imagine like what the business would look like? How it would be different? You'd probably just walk right in. That'd be nice. But would they lose money? Would things be different for them? I'm sure. My father-in-law is a great example. He was, I think, I could be wrong. His doctor had told him he was, I think, pre-diabetic. They were concerned about diabetes, something he was looking into. He completely changed his diet. Not that he was unhealthy. He wasn't overweight and really unhealthy. He was active, he was whatever, but he learned about insulin and he learned about blood sugar and he learned about how foods affects that, how carbohydrates affect that. He started wearing a monitor where he was monitoring sugar levels and insulin and all this different things and how they coincide. And when he eats something, what happens to that in a certain amount of time, all kinds of stuff he did. And he's completely controlled it naturally based on diet and exercise. Yep. Not only does he look amazing, the energy, his ability to do things is amazing. And he's on zero medication,
Yep.
Zero. And all he does is every so often he'll go for his checkup. He has an app on his phone that reads all his levels. He shows his doctor and he goes, oh, good job. Keep it up.
All right, let's get off the health stuff because nobody's going to see that part.
You know, algorithms don't want you to know this stuff. They want to keep you in your insanity.
All right, let's talk about James Kimmel.
James Kimmel.
I don't think you and I have got to talk about this yet. So,
yeah, maybe a smidgen. We sort of touched on it, but a lot has happened since then.
Yes. And so if you don't know Jimmy Kimmel used to be funny when he was partnered with Adam Carolla.
The Man Show.
Did the Man Show and other things. It was in that era where King of the Hill and that kind of what was the King of the Hill guy's name?
Hank Boomhauer.
Oh, not the
Dale.
I'm sorry. What's that other comic that went along with that? Not King of the Hill. King of something.
King of Queens.
Yeah. What's that comedian's name?
You're thinking of I know his name. The heavyset guy.
Yeah.
I know his name. I love this dude, Kevin James.
So that era of comedy was amazing. It really was. That's the SNL era, the late night television. That era was really funny. And Jimmy Kimmel, I think, got bit by a bat or a radioactive flea or something because
a brainworm.
He changed. He became a completely different person, and he became so severely unfunny to me. Like if you're a liberal, you love the things that come out of his mouth because he's got that sharp wit and he does cry an awful lot. Have you noticed that he's a teary guy now?
Yeah.
Doesn't feel something happened to Jimmy. But anyway, so the storyline from a couple of weeks ago, or maybe even last week, I don't know how much time has gone by, but anyway, he wasn't running a very popular show. Not very many viewers. I think he averaged about 120,000 viewers on late night, which is nothing. Late night TV used to be huge popular when Letterman and Jay Leno and Conan O'Brien were doing their thing.
Yeah.
So anyway, so he was off his perch at his high, became really political, divisive, and alienated a lot of the late night crowd. So anyway, the FCC, and I was very critical of what they said publicly to made it seem like they were leveraging everybody who was governed by an FCC license to be a certain way and to say certain things. What they said publicly is that if these comedians are going to lie and spread untruths, and we're going to determine that they're not serving the public good, and the FCC license requires that you serve the public good. And half the people said, well, they just want to like they're not doing that to conservative people who aren't serving the public good. This is directed at the Jimmy Kimmels who are saying very unpopular, unflattering things against this administration. So it was really weak sauce. It was really bad optics to have government agencies directly going after one comedian. And so last week he said this. I know that the controlling company was looking to acquire more stations, and the FCC was like, yeah, you're not going to get approval on the requiring these things if you still got that dude. And I'm making this up. If you still got that dude over there, that's going to be really difficult for you if you continue that. So that leverage was what was suggested as pulling the plug on, or having the company pull the plug on Jimmy to get into the good graces of the FCC so they can get these approvals, right? And so he was suspended. And then a couple days later, I think he was only off the air for 2 days before the CBS decided to bring him back and start taping again. And Sinclair and Nexstar decided that they're still not going to have him appear. They're still going to preempt his show. They're not going to show the national feed. They're going to show and preempt their own stuff. So it's still an ongoing thing. But yeah. I still think that Jimmy Kimmel would falter on his own. He did not need government assistance in order to push him out. And it was really bad for the government to be even a little bit, make it really look a little bit like they were on board with getting rid of him, dismissing.
Yeah, I've heard some sources have said, I wonder if this was just, hey, let's use this. Like, we already sort of want to do away with this. It's not doing well. Oh, here's an opportunity. We can wrap it up right now and be done with it and blame it on that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Is it a couple things? Is it, the lack of success coupled with high tension and we don't want to lose money by being painted in this certain light? Is it the government saying, I don't like that guy, stifle him? I don't know what I believe it is. I sort of get a little bit of an eye roll when people use Kimmel as an attack on free speech. I want to be clear. If the government steps in and blatantly shuts somebody down because they don't like what they're saying, go ahead and be up in arms about an attack on free speech. I just don't know if that's what this was. You think that's what this was?
My objection is that the FCC chairman had the balls to say that stuff publicly, even if it was true or not. If you know that your opposition is just waiting for you to hit an authoritarian bent and they're just waiting, what do you think is going to happen when you say shit like that? So they obviously don't care, right? If leverage is smelled in this whole thing. I think it was just stupid on their part. And if you've got the director should be professional, right? And they shouldn't overtly make it seem like, paint the picture for your opposition that that's what your intentions are. It was just dumb.
Yeah. And I keep going back to this basic concept of you have freedom of speech. You don't have freedom from consequences. You're not going to jail for what you said. You could lose your job. And that's everywhere. We see it everywhere. And by the way, it's not one side, because there's numerous right-leaning celebrities that were canceled like that and lost their show for something they said. And that was okay. But now it's happening to this guy, and that's not okay.
Well, let's just say behind the scenes, they had this talk. They never said anything publicly. And then CBS comes out and says, Jimmy Kimmel canceled for low ratings. And then he just goes away and nobody takes heat for anything. That's all that would have happened. But that guy saying that, right, and leveraging that caused everything that since then to happen.
What exactly did he say?
He was on a podcast and he said,
this is an FCC person.
And the statement, paraphrasing, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. Like, there are no context that's going to paint that in a light that says, they were talking about the biases that are in comedy and the messaging, like when he did not refer to it being a MAGA person that committed the assassination. He said that MAGA was trying hard to not make it one of them, which is like, it's cozying up to saying MAGA twice in one statement. But what he was saying was MAGA's attempt to make it not one of their own, which isn't funny. And you're a comedian.
I thought he said it's ridiculous how they're trying to make this look like it wasn't one of their own.
Yeah, that's essentially what
he implied that it was.
No, he wasn't saying that. He was saying that the
he
right
implied that it was.
No, he said it twice, right? MAGA, which was when it wasn't a MAGA person sewing MAGA's name into
Pull it up. Pull up the quote. I want to see exactly what it was word for word.
Okay.
And watch the source you use. Isn't that sad? We got to see what source it is.
Okay.
Here it
is. Hit
is.
some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them. So the attempt was to make it so that they were not one of them. I'm not saying he was one of them. The attempt at MAGA to make it so that it is distinctly not one of them.
anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it. So 2 things here. We hit some new lows because they were trying to make it seem as though it wasn't one of them. He's saying it was one of them.
No, he was not. That is not what he was saying.
And then he says, and they tried to score political points.
Yes. So what he's saying is that the MAGA group's
did.
energy and what they're saying publicly is to try to make it not one of them. So the effort is to make sure everybody knows it wasn't one of them, and then creating political points off of the assassination.
Okay. I mean, I get it.
Yeah.
I get how that could be. I also very much get, I could see if someone says, if those same words came from a neutral person, you'd think one way. But if those same words came from someone you know is leaning left, it's like, it sounds very much like you're insinuating that they're trying to cover it up and it was one of them.
Okay, so let's just say the opposite of it. So when this happens, like when there's a shooter, both political sides don't want it to be one of them. You don't want it to be part of their group. So he's not lying. The MAGA had an interest in it not being one of them. And so the liberals tried to frame it like it was probably MAGA. And the MAGA people were trying to frame it as it wasn't one of them. So he was stating the obvious. Let's just say it were true and it were MAGA. Right? Or vice versa. If it was we would be saying the exact same thing that Jimmy Kimmel is. That our interests are not necessarily what happened, but the important part was that it wasn't one of us. And that's what I get what he was saying.
And the thing is at the very least, it, again, is just hypocritical. Because yes, 100%, what came out immediately from the right? Let's look at his trans boyfriend. Let's look at his history. Let's look at this. Yes. Absolutely. But what also immediately came out from the left? Could this just have been celebratory
and I'm not
gunshots? And could this have been their own? And
I'm not condemning either part because they both do that, and it's a big interest in doing it. He was just stating the obvious, right? Because he couldn't come out and say, "Well, it was MAGA," but he could say, "Well, even though it wasn't MAGA, they tried real hard to make sure it wasn't MAGA." So it was still a chunk taken out.
Yeah, they both were doing it. He's just one side stating
That's exactly right.
Got it.
Yeah. So it wasn't it wasn't a lie. He wasn't, but he was weaving in, taking a shot at MAGA. And since he couldn't say it was MAGA, he can say that MAGA's intent was to making sure it wasn't. You knew that it wasn't MAGA.
Yeah. But
not funny. Again, he's a freaking comedian. This is not funny stuff.
It's not funny. And that's the thing is like, I could see where the company would come in and be like, dude,
start the Z.
Yeah. Like, no. That you knew this was a high tense situation. You knew that this was a very divisive situation. The way it was worded was in a way that could be misconstrued and taken out of context. Like, what are we going to do now we have an issue?
The thing about is that's nobody's business what he says, right? It is nobody's business. He can say whatever he wants to do and his audience can be attracted to it and people watch and people make money off it. That's it. As long as he's not saying an untrue thing.
If that is their agreement, like, did he, and this is why I said too, when I first found out he was in trouble in any way, my first question is, did they not look at his monologue before he went on air? Was this not planned or practiced? Did he just speak off the cuff? Because again, there are situations in which you can freely express an opinion, and there are situations in which you cannot. I know a lot of people that have said, oh, I'd love to go on Facebook and comment on these things, but I could lose my job. Because it is, in fact, governed by employers what you say sometimes, you say it.
But the content that's produced at CBS isn't necessarily, there's not one group that gets to sign off on it. So the broadcast, the FCC licensed place, was just carrying the programming that was created by CBS. So where CBS, the people that were reading his monologue, I don't give two shits. Like they're not governed by
They're
FCC.
Fine with it, yeah.
But the people who then have to air it are like, hold up, like, why don't you let me read this stuff? So yes, they carry the late night stuff because it was a franchise and a brand that brought viewers in. They're allowed to then disagree with what's being said on the CBS.
So like we talk here, we're not under FCC guidelines. We can say and take certain liberties. So if we took this exact show and our exact wording and we went on the radio and FCC dinged us and shut us down. Did they take away our freedom of speech?
No, the person
Right.
that was buying our programming over there doesn't want to buy it anymore. We can keep recording, and it just doesn't get aired in that location.
Right.
That's essentially
And
what happened.
that's my biggest beef with this whole thing is when they make it about freedom of speech. Did you see? I just saw a couple of artists. So there's a big concert coming up, Lilith Fair. Have you ever heard of Lilith Fair? Apparently, Sarah McLachlan, Jewel, and maybe another artist are no longer performing because they're standing in solidarity for freedom of speech in support of Jimmy Kimmel. And I just went, it's not freedom of speech. The issue is not freedom of speech. You can say, I think the company's targeting him. They don't want to look bad. They're throwing him under the bus. They should stand by him. Company this, whatever you want to do. The man didn't go to jail for what he said. It's a different issue.
But this guy, we have to have finesse in this argument. Okay, so let's use your example. So our show gets carried by a radio station somewhere else that they buy the programming and they sell it, right?
Yeah.
And if that company says, well, you're not doing the numbers we want and we're not able to sell advertising, you're fired. That's completely legit, right? That's not killing your freedom of speech.
Right.
Now, if somebody doesn't like Kelin and they're out there on the street and they can leverage, right, that station not to carry you, and they're like, hey, you know what? We're not going to buy advertising on there, and we represent a big account here unless you get rid of Kelin. Well, it's not a freedom of speech thing.
Right.
So you're right, but it is a very dirty leverage, and especially if that's not coming from a private company that's doing that leveraging, but the federal government that's doing that leveraging. Now you need to call it something different other than
right.
that.
Yeah. Dirty?
Yes.
Gotcha. Wrong? Maybe.
Yes.
All debatable things. But an infraction on your freedom of speech, it is not.
Correct.
Find a new argument.
Correct. Absolutely.
Carter says, Kelin is on fire today.
Yes.
I am.
All right, Joe, what would you do if Kelin said something that was damaging to your business?
Ooh.
So I would have a conversation with Kelin and say, that's no bueno. No bueno.
No bueno. This is damaging. Here's how I feel about it. Let's not.
Mm-hmm.
If it continues, ABC could happen.
Yes. And then
I didn't mean that was bad because this is about ABC. That
well
was
played.
just,
well played.
Yada, yada, yada could happen.
And then if you were like, I don't give a shit about your brand, then I would say you're fired. Two people.
Yeah.
And now, if somebody came to me and said, I don't like what Kelin's saying, I would really have to weigh it whether or not that customer I was willing to lose or lose Kelin. And you would want me as two people that are partnered up that I would have your back instead of advertisers' back.
Yeah.
But you can see that if they were a large enough company that I would halfway entertain that maybe they are more valuable to me than you are.
Like if we were sponsored by a huge business and it kept us in business, and you came to me and be like, so and so doesn't like what you said, we need them. I know we need them.
So then I would come to you and I would say, I want you to talk to them and try to make amends and apologize to them if you're going to stay. And whoever...
Which they did to Kimmel.
Exactly.
Could you give an apology?
Yeah. Do an apology, make this right so that they don't feel like leaving. And if they stay, you get to stay.
Now I might be like, eat shit, I ain't doing it. Well, then
there you go.
We're at an impasse.
But exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But that's how private negotiations happen. It's only when you can get consolidations of power that they can use that power to get what the result that they want, only by leveraging everybody else who's involved. And I think that's really dirty. And I won't support, FCC doing that to anybody. I'll support a Jimmy Kimmel, even though I don't think he's funny. I don't agree with him on anything, but I don't think they should be wielding power against somebody specifically. Now, if they did blanket across the board and they went after Fox News and ONN and CBS, and they were like, we're cleaning this all up, where anybody that's dispensing false information that's carried over the airwaves, we're hitting them all right now. That'll be like equal application. But if you go after one station for one person, that does not feel like the consistent application of a regulation or a law. It feels like they were targeted.
So when you see people like Roseanne Barr lost her job, Tucker Carlson lost his job.
Same thing.
So would you then say, not one-sided, this happens all over?
Yeah, if it's leverage, we should all really not revel in it, not applaud it from happening, even if the other guy gets taken out for sure. It's got to be, for all of us to play in this marketplace, it all has to be fair, right? And the government's job is to keep it fair on the field, and it really is not fair. And so we can either get hung up on the details of this flavor of unfairness, but we really got to just decide that no matter who it is, we are going to protect everyone from the government's ability to give advantage to one person and disadvantage to another.
I did hear that when he came back on last night, rumor has it he was going to address it. Did he? Do you know?
Little bit. It was like around the periphery. Yeah, it was a little bit.
But nothing of like substance or anything.
No, I think his return was done in proper taste, and I think he did a good job of reemerging, and hopefully it makes things better. But he had some humility in his monologue, and you know, I don't think a fight's still ongoing.
If you owned a station, a network, would you air him again?
Oh no, if it was a losing show, I would no.
So you would say not about what you said, not about politics. You're just not doing well in ratings.
Because it would be about, there's a time slot, and I'm going to put the best product in that time slot that I possibly can.
Yeah.
And I know I can do infomercials and do 120,000 people watching. It's not big enough of an audience to take a loss on when I could be selling advertising in that slot in any other way.
Like I've seen people on Facebook posting about other stations, even a local one. And they're like, write and sign a petition and do this to make them bring back Kimmel's show. And it's like, how do you know they're not bringing it back? Because it's not a smart business decision.
Right.
Like, I realize we are in this very sensitive political climate right now, but not everything is a political decision.
Yeah.
Sometimes
and so what we're
just
experiencing is that government facilitated money that would be distributed to media organizations as part of that NGO money laundering operation. Once that stuff started drying up, you watch networks having to cut staff and cut programming because now they have to pay for their stuff like all the rest of us pay for it. And that's the fairness thing. If Fox News has to sell advertising to insurance and gold places and they have to pay their bills legitimately, why should government money be coming back to these companies that don't have to compete in the marketplace? Now it has to be based on your viewership. And if you suck, like if you had a liberal host that people liked but nobody watched, right? If you're receiving subsidies from the government to keep this person on there, you don't give a shit if they get viewers. Like you're being propped up by government money. But the minute that you have to pay the bill by their popularity, then they're like, okay, all of a sudden, even though we like you, you can't be here anymore because they're going to put somebody in here that pays the bills. And that's the phenomenon we're experiencing when government money gets flushed out of the system and market forces are able to take. Now we're having this conversation about what works and what doesn't.
I mean, anybody that's ever had a job in radio knows if money's not coming in, money's not coming in.
Yeah.
Like you're getting laid off and the general public can say all they want. Oh, I really liked so-and-so, or I love listening to this person. That's great. But advertisers didn't buy advertising and off you go.
And you can make the art like Air America. Do you remember Air America?
It sounds familiar.
So talk radio was the bee's knees. It was, you had Rush Limbaugh at the time. You had all of these hosts and they were getting all of the attention. They were just money machines. So the liberals were like, we're going to start a Air America, which is it's a national syndicated programming that we're going to try to compete with Rush Limbaugh. And the liberals propped it up for a really long time. They lost money. They couldn't get an audience. So even if people liked the host, like Rachel Maddow came from Air America. That's where I first heard of Rachel Maddow. And she was a really good host. I listened to her. I think she was right after Rush Limbaugh, and it was cool to listen to one and then the other. Added balance to the two. And they just couldn't get liberal supporters to part with money or listenership, right, in the same way that conservatives did. So they made it work for a period of time. And when the money dried up, they disbanded the entire radio thing. So liberalism does not have the same market appeal as conservatism does, right? So if you're a politician and you're like, well, how do we keep the voices? If it's a balanced approach and you have a very popular Republican, then you have to have a very popular liberal, right? And so they factored in using the government apparatus to keep unpopular messaging happening by taking over education, taking over the media, any place that they can use government money to prop up would make it seem like the liberal messaging was equally as popular as the conservative messaging. You rip that out, the messaging falls flat. And now, so you see the panic where the Jimmy Kimmels couldn't live on their own, and they're going to get washed out, and they're going to get replaced with someone who, guess what? The popular people are not carrying liberal messaging. So the Republicans now, if you take in consideration the money that was being spent on the messaging, the not counting, illegal immigrants as part of the districting and voting, the IDs, you can see liberals are in a very bad track to never win elections again if what is happening now continues to happen.
Speaking of which, the whole Charlie Kirk thing, very, very high tension, very divisive thing. Do you think, this is maybe pivoting a little bit, do you think the assassination of Charlie Kirk may have done damage to one party in general for the foreseeable future?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like, I started hearing people say things like, I will never vote Democrat again. I will never side with the liberals again because of their response of this assassination. Yep. Do you think that when we have our next election season, that's going to hold some weight still?
For sure. Because remember, it was propped up by liberal messaging. Now people can go out on their own and they can voice how they really are. So it's not like MSNBC can collect up what liberals are feeling and then paint the picture that they're reasonable people who were equally as saddened with the passing of Charlie Kirk or the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Now you got to see hundreds of people that you knew that were keeping it quiet, all of a sudden not keeping it quiet. So the liberal establishment is like, oh shit, like all of these people should not be in charge of our messaging. It looks really bad on our brand. And they did it at full volume.
You know what I think is going to be the new tactic? I think we're going to see an increase in AI deepfakes, even more than we used to. Because I think some of these topics have pushed people so far away. It was so blatantly right and wrong that I think we need deepfakes now to get people back. I think there's going to be videos and information served in algorithms to invoke emotion and make you feel some kind of way. I just saw somebody recently, I don't know who she was. It was like a Facebook reel that was served to me. She was talking about how we have so much fighting right now because we are literally seeing different information. Like we think it's like watching the same video and getting two different things from it. Like, the Kimmel. Well, he said this. No, he actually said this. Well, we can see actual literal words, a literal clip, and feel two different ways. But that's not even what we're dealing with anymore. We're dealing with, I saw one video and you saw another, and they're totally different.
But remember, and I think the seal's been broken. I think that this changed everything. And so whatever agenda you had on for midterms and going forward does not apply anymore. Almost like in Butler, Pennsylvania, after they tried to take Trump out, I said Trump just got elected in that moment. And it was because that caused a shift that you can't concoct a counter to that.
Yeah.
And so the Charlie Kirk thing, remember, elections are won by 50% of the moderates in the middle, both on the left and the right. And the biggest volume came out of the fringe on the left. And you alienated your own side by saying, I do not want to be one of them. So you basically pushed your moderates that you need to get elected to this side, or not even this side, but just not doing anything anymore. I can't be a part of this new group kind of thing.
Yeah. And if I'm being perfectly honest, some people have told me lately, hey, you sound like you're kind of leaning more right. I say I'm middle, but they're like, you sound leaning more right. And I'm like, I probably do, because I used to be leaning more left until they all went batshit crazy.
Yes, that is exactly right.
And I was pushed right by the left. And I'm not talking about the news organizations, although they help, or stories I was hearing, or situations I saw in society. It was the people that I was siding with turn on you if you even question anything.
Yep.
And so I'm seeing more. I mean, we saw, I don't know why I can't ever remember his name. I think Julie knows his name. The young kid that used to debate Kirk all the time and talk about how they are two polar opposites and they don't get along and they don't agree on anything. He even said, I will go so far right. Don't even test me. Like all of you people, that his own people turned on him because he cried when Kirk was killed. And they're like, how dare you shed a tear for him? And he's like, I shed a tear because I'm a human being who watched another human being be murdered in front of his wife and kids. And I have feelings about that. You turned on me for that? You're psychotic. And so I think this has pushed people so far to one side that the only thing they have to do now is mess with our information. And I think they've already been doing it.
I don't think it's going to be successful. And
yeah.
if you took and tested which direction, like you would, if you were a liberal and you were in control of messaging, you would say, all right, we just alienated a bunch of people. We need somebody that's more moderate to be our spokesperson to bring those people back into the fold. Now, name anybody who you think is a prospect for president, a candidate for president on the liberal side. The most moderate I could think of is Andrew freaking Cuomo, right? Everybody else is batshit crazy. So if you think which direction do they go, do you think they're going to go more left or do you think they're going to come more center? You can see the populist movement in the Liberal Party is going towards the most fringe, farther left people that you can imagine.
Yeah.
Right? Name a moderate other than, again, Andrew Cuomo. Anyone other than Andrew Cuomo. What was that business guy? Man, he was that billionaire. He was during the Biden runoff. What the heck was his name? Andrew Yang.
I was going to say Yang. I almost said, was it Andrew Yang?
Yes.
I liked Yang.
Okay. He was moderate. Do you think he's popular within liberal posts right now?
Probably not.
Probably not. And I've watched him, so I still follow him from the last election cycle. He's gone a little bit fringy too with some of the stuff he said. He's kind of joining the popular things to say. And I'm like, if you would have told me that dude was capable of joining that crowd, I would have said, you're crazy. This guy might have liberal tendencies, but he's more moderate and center than the rest of these crazy people. He's starting to fringe out.
They're saying, they, meaning people on the right, a lot of the far right people that we see in social media and government were like, you just killed the most moderate of us.
Yes.
Like, everybody wants to say, oh, Charlie Kirk, he was this right Republican, blah, blah, blah. He was more moderate than anyone else you're going to find in the public eye for the conservatives. And you killed him. So now you're screwed.
Oh, did you see Milo came out of retirement?
So I keep seeing this Milo dude, and I am not real familiar with him. But he made a statement. He's like, you killed the good guy. Now you have me.
Milo is my favorite. Like before Trump, okay, the biggest troll in the United States, and he's a British guy, but in the United States, in pop culture, Milo was the biggest troll because at the time, the LGBTQ thing was just getting started. There was not a lot of acceptance for gays. And he was a gay dude, but he was a strict conservative. And he almost had the protections because he was a gay dude. He could say anything he wanted. He could make fun of his own group. He could torch people without any repercussions.
Because you're only allowed to make jokes like that if you are.
Exactly. So he was able to take liberties to torch everybody, call Muslims out, call gays out, the whole thing. And he was untouchable. And he got in a lot of heat. He got to he's a troll. So his job was to infuriate the left and make them crazy. And then it got a little too heated. And so he retired and got out of the limelight. And then Trump took the baton and continued on
He's like, I'll go troll people.
So to have Milo back is the freaking best. I love Milo and what he's able to say to people because it's some of the more the things that you'd be a bigot and a homophobe and whatever, and to watch it come out of the mouth that you can't tag him with those things, it just feels so good.
I'm gonna have to look this guy up.
Dude's awesome.
I don't think I've ever seen any of his stuff before.
He's very flamboyant. well-spoken, very intelligent, and has a British accent. So that means a lot. It resonates with being owned by someone with a British accent. You can't get better than that.
Yeah, they're instantly more credible.
100%.
I don't make the rules.
Yeah. Joe, what would that's what Disney did. Fox in the last week lethally injected homeless people. Jesse Waters bombed the UN. No, everything is not equal. But I believe Jesse Waters, or no, what it was Brian, whatever. Brian, I forget his name, but he said that when talking about homeless people stabbing people in the neck, he said that, mentally ill homeless people should be publicly executed. And then he came back and apologized for that.
She says, no, everything is not equal. It is equal. They are both equally insane.
100%.
Both sides are equally insane.
Yeah. But I think her point is that Jimmy Kimmel got kicked off the air for those kinds of vitriol that he was saying. And Brian still has a job, which is a fair point.
Well, I mean, there's other people that don't have their jobs. It might not be Brian, but there have been conservative talking heads that lost their job and liberals that lost their job.
Yeah. So I'm sure that the right for response is that if the viewers of Fox News decide not to watch because Brian's there, and they write a letter that says, if you get rid of him, I'll be back, then the bosses there can decide whether or not their viewership drops by 50%. And they're like, Brian, you got to leave. And then that would be equal. Let the market forces of who now will watch versus not watch. How many people in the audience thought that he wanted to execute mentally ill people versus people who were like, he was saying that because he was angry that a mentally ill person just stabbed somebody in the neck. And they got to decide whether or not it was bad enough to get rid of him or not. It wasn't the FCC that came in and leveraged them. Right?
Yeah. And what's another frustrating thing too is like, we're so like, if this, then this. I don't even see our culture anymore as like Republican, Democrat, right and left. We're sane and insane. And I'm not saying one side is sane and one side is insane. I'm saying there are good and bad Republicans. There are good and bad Democrats. There are Republicans that do and say ridiculous things. And there are some that say very helpful things. The other side, just as much. You can be a Dem and you can have your head on straight and you can make sense and you can vote for things that make sense and you cannot side with the extremists. The problem is we do have two extremes and they are the loudest and they are the instigators. And it only gets bad when you follow the extremes.
But that is naturally what will happen. The reason Milo is popular is because he is an extremist in the words that he uses. I just said that I like watching him throw grenades.
But we will also make extremists. Like, I don't think Charlie Kirk was extreme in his views. I don't think he was, like we've just said, he was more mainstream than probably anyone else that would have been considered right-wing as far as the public eye goes, podcasters, things of that nature. But he was made to be that way if one side needed it. It was like, oh, this guy's getting people to listen to him. This guy's making some good points. This guy is swaying people. Nope, he was a racist and he was spreading hate and he was blah, blah, blah. And he's this extremist and it's like, no, he wasn't. So we'll make it that way. If you're losing, hey, all you got to do is try to discredit the guy who's winning and off you go.
But that, again, don't be surprised because that is where we're headed. I mean, if you watch even Don Lemon, so I'm not going to put him in the same category as Milo, but when he lost his job with the network and he's able to just do things independently, he's not afraid anymore to be able to say, he said things before, but now he's really not afraid to say things. So I watched both of those, both very fringe people on opposite side of the deal, trying to create the devastation in their line of questioning and how they attack. And so if you don't think do you think more people are paying attention to Don Lemon without the gloves on now than they were before? 100%, because now he's Don Lemon unfiltered. Right. And so if you say, if everybody's like doing moderate, I'm like, I'm getting 100 views and I'm saying just regular vanilla stuff, but look at him over there. He's getting millions of views because he's not afraid to say, what do you think we get more of? Whatever people are paying attention to, which we get more Milos and more Don Lemons, and it even gets to a bigger exponent. And before you know it, Idiocracy is here. And you could say that Joe and Kelin told you it wasn't, a joke that we were headed towards idiocracy. It's where we're going and where we're headed.
And all I got to say is like, protect your sanity, especially on social media. And I had mentioned too how like deep fakes, I think, are going to be more prevalent. AI is obviously going to be more prevalent. I saw something yesterday and I just went, oh, this just grinds my gears because I know this is this is just where we are now. I was served an ad on Facebook for a jewelry company. And I can't remember the name, but it was 2 names. It was a mother-daughter Facebook page, showed their picture together. We've made jewelry for so many years. Check out our unique original pieces. And it was like Grace and somebody. And I was like, oh, those are kind of neat. And it was like everything now 80% off. We're closing our store. Thank you for the years of service, but we're no longer going to be making it. Here's our inventory, now 80% off. And I'm looking at some pieces and literally was about to purchase one when I went and I zoomed in and I'm like, this picture's pretty grainy. This isn't a very clear picture. Is this a fake picture? And then I pulled up the picture of the mother and daughter and I'm like, it's a good one, but I think this is fake. And I'm like checking their fingers and everything. And I'm just like, I'm going to not. I don't need any of this anyways. I'm just going to go about my day. I see the exact same jewelry ad come up. Now 2 different names. Same mother-daughter, different clothes, different position. 80% off. Check out this jewelry, blah, blah, blah. I was like, son of a bitch. Sure enough, later in the day, same jewelry comes up again. Different company name. Now the sale is just, we're supporting our customers. Thanks for keeping us in business. Sale, sale, sale. Buy these. Now it's a woman and her son. Same exact picture, different photo. They look the same. The jewelry is the same. And I went, this is fake. This is AI. This is a scam trying to get people to sell jewelry. And I'm like, oh my God, how rampant is this? How rampant is it? The ads aren't real. The reels you're watching aren't real. The videos you're watching aren't real. The posts aren't real. You can even see your own friend say something that didn't happen. Like, that's a fake account. Mm-hmm. You get fake emails. Not like nothing is real anymore. How many times have you watched a video and it looks like they're saying something and then you're like, I started watching one thing. It might have been Megyn Kelly or somebody was served to me. And I'm listening. And then all of a sudden I realized ever so slightly, though, their lips don't match. Ever so slightly. They're getting really good. And I was just like, this isn't real. This is a fake video. And I think that is where we're at. And I'm telling you, like, shortly after Charlie Kirk's murder, I went to I'm not off social media, but I did a lot of unfriending, unfollowing, not dealing with this. I changed my algorithms to a few less outrage-inducing reels, and now it's like Halloween home decor makeup reels. I'm telling you, it's amazing for your mental health. Trust nothing you see online. Don't trust the media. Look into real-life information and surround yourself with positivity every now and then see if you're not only feeling better, but making better decisions. It's almost like you can clear your brain a bit and then go forward with what makes sense. Like, oh my God, I'm getting up in arms about Tylenol. Take a break, give it some time. And then you're going to be like, I'm not up in arms about Tylenol. I'll take it if I need it. I won't if I won't. And I'll just kind of see what the research says. You're like, oh, what a novel idea. Sorry, tangent. Julie says 2 homeless camps were targeted by mass shooters 2 days later. Coincidence?
I don't know. Maybe.
I don't know. Milo retired because of his comments about pedophilia with children that have gone through puberty. The right dropped him. Not a good guy. I don't know anything about that. Do you?
I don't know.
We'll have to look into that.
I'm not surprised. He was a person that if you didn't want to hear it, he was going to say it. So his job was to inflame everybody. So I'm not surprised where he called someone a pedophile or whatever.
Did he call someone a pedophile?
If you know,
or was he acting as a pedophile?
If you were sitting in the audience and you were a blonde person, right? He was coming after you at something that he knows is going to make you mad about blondes. Okay, that was his brand.
But Carter says Kelin gets an A+ today, much better than the cackling MLO bros.
I agree with that message.
Thanks. But when she says comments about pedophilia, Julie, are you saying he talked about pedophiles or he said something that made him seem like a pedophile?
I'll have to.
He said it should be acceptable.
I'm going to look for that quote, but let me make a prediction. Yeah. Let me make a prediction that he was not in support of pedophilia, and I'm sure it was concocted that way, but I will stand corrected if I'm wrong, but I will look into it tonight.
Yeah, look into things. I looked into another thing, too, that's very controversial, but I said, well, this is controversial, so I'm going to look into it. One of the things that people kept saying about Charlie Kirk, and by people, I mean the people who did not like him and wanted to paint him as a racist, homophobe, hate spreader, they didn't like his comments about Martin Luther King. And they're like, clearly he's a racist because he said something like the only good thing Martin Luther King did was that one speech. He wasn't a good guy. You ever look into that? Mm-mm. So I was like, really? Well, that's a pretty bold thing to say. That's a pretty bold stance to take. So I started looking into it. Do you know there are like court documents? Not like somebody said this, somebody said that. You can pull up official documents of like things King was in trouble for, like beating a woman, and
they have referred to it as checkered past. And you know, we sort of like take a human being and we create an epitaph for what they stood for, and sometimes we do it the best of what they achieved. And if you look in the biographies of anybody that has an accomplished life, there are things in there that are blemishes on their character and would not make them look good. So even releasing the MLK files, the family said, we're remembered how we want to be remembered. It's for the public good that it's remembered this way. You dig into that checkered past, and all it's going to do is undermine the message of what MLK stood for, because he was a human, fallible person just like all of us. And there are things in there that aren't great for his reputation after the fact. So
so nobody's perfect. Everybody messes up. You can do a really amazing thing for humanity and still have done something shitty. So it's so interesting when we get into this mindset of you don't ever speak bad about so-and-so. If so, you're a certain way. And it's like, again, we're back to this. You can't question anything. You can't point out anything. You can't show evidence to the contrary of anything. Everybody is just like, they did this, they're good. They did this, they're bad.
Well, we live in an era, like the people that I read about were lived in the 1800s and early 1900s, right? So to learn about somebody, what options did you have if you wanted to learn about Henry Ford and, you know, Thomas Edison, right? You had biographers, you had maybe some headlines in newspaper, and who was responsible for giving you the only storyline that you'll ever know about those people? And if they're influential and powerful, I bet you they can leverage you to put only good things in what they do write-ups about you.
Yeah.
And then we got into the era of 24-hour cable news, and they needed to be able to put stuff 24 hours a day on there. So they were able to dig deeper into the storylines of people. So we started knowing more about what people were. And so that if you were advocating for someone, you dressed them up a certain way. And if you were gunning for them, then you dressed them up a different way. And so we got to know people a little bit more. And now we can know everything about anyone all the time. So it's not like Henry Ford and Elon Musk are radically two different people. Both of them probably made some mistakes. Both of them have some things that you take criticism at if you knew about them. We just happen to know more about today's innovators than we did back when information was controlled a lot, easier.
And do you find yourself, do you trust someone more if they get ahead of it and they talk about things they did?
Oh, for sure.
They did?
Yeah.
I kind of do too. Like, Kennedy did that,
Mhm.
you know, when there was this scandal about the dead bear in Central Park or cutting off a whale head and all these things. He came right out and told the whole story.
Mhm.
And he was like, I did do that. Here's why. Here's what actually happened. He explained it. And it may still paint him in a bad light. And he'll be like, I see how that was a dumb thing to do. And it's like, I'll respect you more doing that than just trying to hide it or just trying to deflect or whatever. And even Charlie Kirk did that. He was open at one point. He talked about he struggled with a porn addiction at one point in his life. Talked about turning it around, steps he took to get away from that. So when there's nothing you can bring up about someone that they've not already addressed, you know, kind of like we've talked about the idea of debate, know what they're going to say about you and say it already.
Mhm.
You know, you say it first. Now you have nothing.
Right.
I think it makes someone more trustworthy.
Well, and especially because if you say it yourself, then you could say everything that people need to know about it. So let's just say Henry Ford. And so what blemishes do you know about Henry Ford?
Not many. I don't know a whole lot about him.
Okay.
I didn't study him.
Okay. So if I would say that he was a nationalist, had a racial bent to him, where he's a sympathizer with Germany and Nazis, would you believe it? If he supported publications of a white nationalist periodical, would you believe it?
Just because you said it?
Well, he's not here to defend himself. So I can,
Right.
after the fact, if he did not become known as a person who had a high belief in superior white race or Nazi, you know, white nationalism,
Yeah. I'd say, well, I have to.
Yeah, you have to agree
look
with
into
everything
that.
I say.
Yeah.
I only know about it because I studied the history, and part of the criticisms at the time were that he was in support of those things. I don't know the full story. I only know what the biographer said. But wouldn't it be helpful that if that was part of who you were and you were end up being wrong, that you told the story so that 100 years from now, someone's reading about you, they don't associate you with something that you can't defend yourself against? It's a big upside to just being truthful about the fallibility of humans.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, how many times did somebody say, oh, I'm not going to trust an ex-drug addict, meaning Kennedy? And I'd be like, yeah, he's admitted that.
No, but I bet you trust drug addicts all the time.
Yes.
You just happen to have one that admitted that they're a drug addict. I bet there were doctors that you've seen and accountants and attorneys and police officers, all drug addicts. And I bet you that you listen to them.
Yep. I bet everyone you get your news from has done something, but they're credible.
And you've had probably thieves and adulterers and all kinds of stuff that you listen to every single day that are under the surface, not as good as you seem. But I will tell you mathematically, human beings are fallible, which means every person you know has things that they don't want you to know about them and make them look really bad if you knew.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of grace that, you know, you as a critic of someone, right, are equally as bad if they were to flip the script on you and say, okay, well, you want to tell everybody about my heroin addiction 15 years ago. What about your thing? Defend it, biatch.
Carter says, you're my idol, Julie. Because Julie says, do not idolize
any human. We are not pure. 100%. See, Julie and I agree so much during this show. It's not even funny.
I know. Like I said, sane versus insane. One side is not all good and one side is not all bad. There are people who are sane and insane on both sides. So do you
feel like let's just say, and I know we don't follow this at all, but there are some people almost feel like they're doing bad for the brand by criticizing the people that are on their team. Like, I'm a Browns fan, right? Mm-hmm. I say we suck more than anybody else could say that we suck. I'm critical of my team more than anybody on the outside could be critical of my team because I can be objective. Like, it would be better if I didn't criticize and talk shit about the team that I actually support. But on the political side, how many Biden people bought into the delusional talk about how sharp he was at the time, only because they know that they didn't want to be on the tackling part of the other team. They didn't want to help the other team by doing it.
Yeah.
So they zipped their lips and said, it's not my place to be critical.
Speaking of which, have you seen anything about Kamala's book?
Oh, yeah. What a doofus. We are so lucky that we do not have Kamala Harris as president of the United States because she is an idiot. She's a freaking
She
moron.
basically released a book stating how, I'm paraphrasing, she did not say this. I'm going to put this out there right now. It feels to me like it was like, you're right, I was really not prepared. Like, what a shit show.
Did she really say, and this was third hand, did she say that she did not bring Pete Buttigieg along because he was gay? Did she really say that?
Oh, I don't know.
Let me get the quote because I don't want to put out.
I don't know. She had basically said she felt like the Biden administration didn't have her back. They didn't step in to defend her when they could have. She was ill prepared.
Because he was gay. So she was on with Rachel Maddow.
In her book, Harris admitted that Buttigieg, the former U.S. Transportation Secretary, was her, quote, first choice to join her ticket as vice presidential candidate, though she ultimately picked Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota.
Yeah, here it says Kamala Harris was put on the spot, appearing to cross Pete Buttigieg off her list of potential 2024 presidential running mates because he was gay. It's in quotation marks.
That must be the video. Is that the video of it? Because again, you still got to see the context. We'll have to look and see. Oh, Julie says she did. She felt it was too risky. She was right.
That's not a very popular thing to say publicly, though.
To admit.
To admit publicly. Yeah. And interesting. William says Milo defended sexual relationships to sex, and I'm gonna watch that and I'll see what was actually said. See if it was a grenade thrown or he was admitting to being a bad person. I don't know. I've never seen it.
Like, is he a sicko or was it?
We'll see.
Taken.
I'll be judge of it. I'll be transparent.
We'll be the judge of this.
Yep.
Like most things here.
But in the brand of Milo, he will say things that make you feel very uncomfortable that he just said that. And truthful or not, being confrontational was his brand for sure.
I'm going to look him up. I'm going to look him up today and see.
All right, let's get out of here. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll catch you tomorrow.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this show on Youngstown Studio. This is original Youngstown content. Feel free to share our videos and tell your friends about us. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook.